Happy Friday, everybody, and welcome to the second half of 2022 and quarter three. Big shout out to you guys for kicking this YouTube off right. We've got 7 or 8 likes on the last two videos in a row, 20 views, 30 views, 40 views now on the very first video. So let's keep it up. Hit that like and subscribe button. I would like to say thank you to each and every one of you, the viewers, for making it possible and providing the motivation to continue to make these. Let me know in the comments below what you guys are seeing on the ground: inflation, layoffs, shortages, anything related to economics or any tidbits, input. I want to hear from you guys, so let me know down below, and let's hop right into it. First half of the year, FUBAR, stocks worst in 60 years, bonds and Bitcoin worst ever. If you guys can hear this fire truck going by, well, you guys know how I do it. One take. Sorry if that blows your eardrums out. S&P down 21.1%, 21.01% in 1970's first half. We currently finished 21.22% down in the first half of 2022. According to Bloomberg's data, this would be the worst since 1962. 60 years ago, folks. NASDAQ Composite was down 30% to start the year. Worst start to a year ever. Worse than the first half of the 2002 collapse. Year to date, U.S. stocks have been hammered lower with 3 small buy-the-dip efforts, all resulting in failure. Only the energy sector is green year to date, with consumer discretionary the worst. Stagflationary pressures are the large current quagmire. U.S. economy also saw false hopes of recovery in quarter one, which, if you guys have been following anything I've said for about 7 months, quarter one was obviously going to be horrible. Quarter two was going to be worse, put us into a recession, and now, start of quarter three, they're finally having to admit it and sort of face the truth. We'll get to the sort of in a minute. U.S. economy saw false hopes again, only to have slapped in the face of optimists in quarter two, as May and June saw macro data collapse. U.S. Treasury suffered their worst first half of the year ever. That's right. U.S. Treasury suffered their worst first half of a year ever. Short end of the curve was the hardest hit. 2-year rising 220 basis points in the first half. 30-year up 123 basis points. And crypto was carnage as Bitcoin fell 59% in the first half of the year. The worst start to a year ever for cryptocurrency, worse than the 57.99 drop of 2017. Ethereum was the worst, falling 72% year to date. Dollar soared in the first half of the year, up almost 10%, its biggest start to a year since 2010. What happened in 2008, 9, and 10? Get out your charts, ladies and gents. Interestingly, today's dead cat bounce managed to get stocks up to Friday's cash open level before stocks went panic bid into OPX, option expiration. Credit markets are breaking bad and signaling significantly more pain ahead for stocks. Treasuries were bid today with short end outperforming. Global inflation expectations are starting to really tumble, with the U.S. 10-year break-evens at their lowest since September 2021, while Japanese inflation expectations have fallen the least. Rate hike expectations fell further, and subsequent rate cut expectations rose as recession fears rise. And, officially, stagflation is here. The dollar had a big month, quarter, and half of the year, surging back to near COVID safe haven spike highs. Bitcoin fell back below 19,000. Commodities crashed, falling down to pre-Putin invading Ukraine levels. U.S. natural gas tumbled further today on another bigger than expected storage build, a pleasant surprise at the gas pump, although very marginal and not a lot of progress to reduce prices. Oil suffered its first monthly decline since November. Finally, we note that global equity and debt capital markets lost a stunning $31 trillion in the first half of the year, and that was triggered by just a $1 trillion drop in global central bank balance sheets. Again, guys, we've had the worst economic data and worst market in 60 years, and that was from an unwinding of only 1 trillion from the balance sheet. That spells very big trouble ahead. I think that's it for this article. Let's hop into the Straits Times from Asia. Beijing slams NATO over completely futile China warning. This is from AFP. Beijing on Thursday slammed NATO over a, again, completely futile warning, in which the group said for the first time in a guiding blueprint that China's power challenges the military alliance. Again, NATO's expansion has been going on for 40 years, and it wants to continue. Obviously, Russia, China, and the BRICS are mostly opposed. Beijing response came after NATO's strategic concept published at a summit in Madrid said Beijing's stated ambitions and coercive policies challenged its interests, security, and values. NATO also said that China's closer ties to Russia went against Western interests. No duh. Drawing a fiery response from Beijing, they said, quote, NATO's so-called new strategic concept document disregards facts, confuses black and white, and smears China's foreign policy. He added that China firmly opposes it. He'd also like to warn NATO that hyping up the so-called China threat is completely futile. Back to the economy from Barron's, we have the French inflation jumping to the highest rate since 1991. French inflation accelerated to its highest level since 1991 in June. Official data showed Thursday as food and energy costs have surged since, as they are blaming it wrongly on Russia's invasion of Ukraine. They should be looking towards the banks. Consumer prices jumped 5.8%. We should probably put a 1 or a 2 in front of all these numbers. 15.8% might be a little more accurate, with energy soaring 33.1%, similar to the first video I did where we went over the German energy sector and materials inflation, all right around 30+%. Also, food rising, we can put a 1 in front of that, 15.7%. Price growth was 6.5%. I don't know about that one. Interestingly enough, also in France did ban the use of the words steak and sausage to describe vegetarian products as misleading. France will become the first European Union country to ban the use of words like steak and sausage from being applied to plant-based foods. They said, quote, it will not be possible to use sector-specific terminology traditionally associated with meat and fish to designate products that do not belong to the animal world and which in essence are not comparable. Interesting anti-woke, anti-bug agenda message there. Here on the economy, Apple joins other foreign brands in raising prices in Japan. Sorry, my window just blew open. 1 second. There we go. Sorry about that, guys. Apple hiked prices of iPads and iPods in Japan early on Friday, becoming the latest and highest profile brand to join a growing list of foreign firms asking Japanese consumers to pay more as weakening yen squeezes income. Investigation details from the CDC looking at here we go. As of June 29th, 23 people infected with an outbreak strain of Listeria have been reported from 10 states. Of the 22 people, 26 reported living in or traveling to Florida. Just an interesting dot. Here we got salmonella found in the world's biggest chocolate plant. Salmonella bacteria has been discovered in the world's biggest chocolate plant run by Swiss giant Barry Callebaut in the Belgian town of Wise. Completely butchered that, forgive me. Company spokesperson told agents France Press production had been halted at the factory, which produces liquid chocolate in wholesale batches for 73 clients. More shortages on the way of every item imaginable, from parts to food, you name it. This was the plant in Flanders, northwest of Brussels. Here we've got from Disclosed TV, mid-2023, according to planned legislation in Germany, everyone over the age of 14 will be able to change their gender and first name once a year, the governing parties announced today. So you can now officially be whatever you want, whenever you want, at least once a year. Glad to see that all of our money going towards, what was it, the Build Back, World World Build Back Better plan, $600 billion, part of it going towards gender equality. Glad to see it's working in Germany. Supreme Court allows Biden to end Trump-era Remain in Mexico policy. The court said in a 5-4 ruling that Biden administration acted properly in seeking an end to the Remain in Mexico policy, known as the Migrant Protection Protocol. The thing about that, though, mainly Central America, it was to have them wait in Mexico while their claims were decided. They noted that the number of people sent back while the Trump administration was using the policy was, quote, relatively small, and that there's insufficient detention capacity domestically. Both the parole option and the return to Mexico option are legally permissible options under the immigration status. Every president since the 1900s has employed the parole option. They said today's decision makes the border crisis worse. We've also had Ketanji Brown sworn in as the first black woman on the Supreme Court simply because she is African American. Governor Kathy Hochul says Fed's sending more monkeypox vaccines to New York. Get yours today. Next month you can have your second. Month after that, third. Next year you'll probably be on your sixth, just like they're pushing the COVID again. U.S. to begin distributing monkeypox vaccines across the whole country. U.S. Department of Health and Human Services will send 56,000 doses of the vaccine to high transmission areas right away, while another 240,000 doses will be distributed over the following weeks. Again, they want an additional 1.6 million doses to be available in the coming months. U.S. tells pharmas to make COVID boosters targeting a variant, subvariant of the Omicron. U.S. FDA COVID boosters for fall and winter should include components targeting the BA.4, BA.5 sublineages of Omicron. They would favor shots that target the latest iterations rather than its original form, fearing the latter would be too out of date. So again, more boosters, more shots, more COVID in the headlines. Again. Here we've got the result of COVID. COVID is threatening to throw travel plans of holidaymakers into disarray this summer. Cases are surging across Europe, leaving airlines with no option but to cancel flights. They've warned of further disruptions today in Dublin Airport after it was forced to cancel 12 flights to Europe destinations yesterday due to a spike in COVID-19 cases among staff. The virus and strikes are also to blame for the airline canceling 13 flights last weekend. The route hit yesterday was between Dublin, Amsterdam, Edinburgh, Frankfurt, Geneva, Lyon, and Munich. Watchdog urges tighter controls on crypto transactions as, wink wink nudge nudge, we steadily roll towards the Fed central bank coin, which is the end goal here that they're not going to tell you until it happens. Countries need to ramp up controls on cryptocurrency transactions to meet international standards on transparency, a watchdog said on Thursday. The Paris-based Financial Action Task Force, the FATF, said countries had made only limited progress. Under the rule, regulators are supposed to ensure that cryptocurrency firms verify the identities of people involved in transactions, more government oversight, more oversight, and less privacy for you, the user. The standard is seen as a way to minimize the risk of currencies being used for money laundering or terrorism financing, a classic excuse. And they want to accelerate implementation and enforcement of this. Moscow summons UK envoy over Johnson's Putin remarks. This one was just kind of comedic relief. Russia on Thursday summoned Britain's ambassador to Moscow. Russia told envoy Deborah Brunert it firmly opposed the openly offensive comments by the British authorities towards Russia, its leader, its officials, as well as the Russian people. Johnson said on Tuesday that Putin would not have started the war in Ukraine, hear this, if he was a woman, and said the military operation was a perfect example of, quote, toxic masculinity. That's right. Invading a country is simply expressing your toxic masculinity. But if Putin was in Germany, he could simply go and change his name and his gender, and then he would not be enforcing his mansplaining, manspreading, toxic masculinity in Ukraine. Putin dismissed Johnson's comments as incorrect, and he said, Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman, every week threatening to nuke everyone or doing something or another. Russian ministries underlined it was unacceptable to share deliberately false information, especially on alleged threats by Russians resorting to nuclear arms. There was a funny comment about that. Putin, I don't think he was in this article. Putin said if any other Western leaders did something. Oh, maybe I have it. We'll come back to that. NATO wary of Russia, Chinese gains on the southern flank. That's right, we're talking about Africa. NATO chief, more support Thursday for countries in Africa and the Middle East as the alliance looks to compete with Russia and China's growing influence in the region. Leaders meeting at a summit in Madrid discussed how Russia and China continue to seek political, economic, and military gain across our southern neighborhood. Both Moscow and Beijing are using economic leverage, coercion, and hybrid approaches to advance their interest in the region. They want even more support for their partners in that region, which means even more money will be needed, and even more money will have to be printed. NATO unveiled its new strategic blueprint in Madrid that labeled Moscow, quote, the biggest threat to the NATO alliance after the invasion of Ukraine and addressed challenges from China for the first time. Clearly, because China has joined with Russia and the other BRICS nations. Western nations have also expressed growing worries over the role of Kremlin-linked Russian mercenaries in hotspots on the continent such as Mali. Syria joined Russia in recognizing Ukraine's separatist republics, just another development in the legitimacy of the separatist regions of Ukraine, now joining Russia. This is an interesting one going back to World War II, 100-year-old terminology, the Iron Curtain descending between Russia and West. Moscow's foreign ministry says the process has begun for a new Iron Curtain, and he warned the West to, quote, behave carefully. Here was just a funny gaffe, and then we're going to leave it on that, and I hope you guys have an excellent 4th of July.
And what happened was, joining NATO. We got on the telephone. He suggested we call the leader of Switzerland. My goodness, I'm getting really anxious here about expanding NATO. Sweden. And what happened was, we got on the phone and she asked if she could come the next day to want to talk about joining NATO.
The President of the United States of America, right there, anxious, doesn't know the difference between Sweden, Switzerland, or swastikas. So with that, guys, leave a like, comment, and hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys in the next one. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. Happy 4th. Don't blow your hand off on any fireworks. Bye.